Hi guys, going to be reading about the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing. In the 1950s and 60s, the American people, backed by civil rights leaders like Martin Luther King Jr., were speaking out against racial inequality and discrimination. In 1954, the Supreme Court ruled the separation of black and white children at school as unlawful in the Brown versus Board of Education case. While the ruling was met with resistance in many Southern white communities, many African Americans saw the case as a stepping stone to ending other racial inequality problems, and it eventually sparked a series of nonviolent protests carried out by Black communities that would continue for over a decade. The protests triggered outrage among police and many white community members, and soon some areas, mainly in the South, were experiencing frequent crime and violence on both sides. As you read, identify evidence that shows how Americans viewed racial discrimination differently in the years following the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing. Paragraph 1. In the 1950s and 60s, racial conflicts were a big problem in Birmingham, Alabama. A lot of people thought of it as the most racist city in America. 21 bombs were set off at African American churches in the city between the years of 1955 and 1963. People gave the city the nickname Bombingham. Many civil rights leaders were trying to help fix the problems in Birmingham. One of those leaders was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The activists worked to plan protests and events. The people who went to the protests often got arrested. The police in Birmingham did not allow the protests to happen without trouble. Civil rights leaders and community members went to the 16th Street Baptist Church to plan meetings. It became well known as a place where activists met. So obviously, we can see why it has that title. You know, the 16th Street Baptist Church was something they used to plan meetings. It's where a lot of these activists met, and obviously, by the title, we're going to see how there were bombs that were set off there, and how this was a city that had a lot of conflict. Birmingham, they had a lot of racist activity. They had a lot of conflict with white communities, and so we can see how that's going to come to pass. Sunday morning. Until Sunday, September 15th, 1963, no one was killed in the bombings. On that day, the 16th Street Baptist Church became the site of another explosion. At 10:22 a.m., the teenage Sunday school secretary got a phone call. The person delivered an ominous message. Now we see ominous means suggesting that something bad is going to happen. Just saying 3 minutes. Less than 1 minute later, the bomb went off. 15 sticks of dynamite had been hidden under the church steps. The explosion hit the back room of the church. Inside, 5 young girls were getting ready to sing in the church choir. Witnesses said the bomb caused the girls to fly through the air like rag dolls. The blast also tore a 7-foot wide hole in the wall. In fact, the explosion was so powerful that a man who was driving by was blown out of his car. The bomb killed 4 of the girls: Addie Mae Collins, 14; Carol Denise McNair, 11; Carol Robertson, 14; and Cynthia Wesley, 14. The 5th girl, Sarah Collins, was badly injured. Pieces of glass had flown into her eye and blinded her. Beyond the 5 girls, the explosion injured 19 people. Black people in Birmingham reacted quickly to the bombing. Many people rushed to the church to help look for bodies in the church's ruins. Hundreds of others stormed the city. They burned buildings that white people owned and protested violently. It took 300 extra state policemen to help Birmingham's police get the city back under control. Public support. The funerals of the 4 girls got a lot of attention around the U.S. Thousands of people, including more than 800 clergymen of all races, attended. Now, if we go down, clergies mean like pastors, priests, and other religious leaders. And we're going to stop right there, and then we're going to bring it back in part 2.